Thank you. So first of all, I would like to thank Wiley and the entire team for their support in organizing this webinar. Really appreciate it. And I would like to welcome you all to this session of relearning how we learn from the campus to the workplace. So this session is based on our latest research, our thought leadership that we did. And we are keen to share our insights with all of you on what we actually learned from the study. So before we get started, I would like to take a moment to brief you about the Center for the Future of Work, who we are and what we do. So we are a think tank for Cognizant, and our charter is to figure out how the future of work works. And for that, we engage with academia, with C-level executives, with economists, with the analyst community, and try to make sense of the changes that are happening around us and how the future of work will be restructured and reimagined and reconfigured in the years to come. And what we do actually, if you look at it, we are going to look at different aspects of, things that are going to impact our work, whether it's going to be business strategies or markets or competition, management models, socioeconomics, sociopolitics, location, and the individual's view of work. This is our site, cognizant.com/future of work, where we put all our thought leadership. We also write very frequently in the form of articles and blogs. So in case you are, keen to learn more about, how the future of work is going to shape, so this is the platform for you. You can get a lot of information, a lot of interesting insights, some thought-provoking ideas. And at the same time, if you're interested in sharing your perspective, if you have a very interesting perspective to share with the world, we'll be happy to provide this platform. You can come on board and share your perspective in the form of articles that you can write. So that's about the Center for the Future of Work. So let's get started. A quick background on this research. So what we did is basically, we interviewed more than 860 respondents, top business executives at leading companies, as well as higher education institutions, globally. The sample was, distributed, as you can see on your screen. 30% of the sample was, done among the higher education institutions. For businesses, we surveyed businesses across various verticals, whether it's banking, financial services, healthcare, insurance, life sciences, so on and so forth. But why, we chose these two, set of audiences? Because if you look at both businesses and higher education institutions are responsible to prepare the future workforce. So that's why we included, both the entities for this research. What we really wanted to investigate, what was the objective of doing this report? If you look at our current education systems and training programs, they have been slow to adapt to the new realities of the world of work, creating a disconnect between what and how we learn and the speed at which we need to retool our skills to stay employed in the future. So our hypothesis was that many core elements of learning, how people learn and how companies and educators encourage learning, will be impacted by the rise of this new machine age over the next 5 to 6 years. So in particular, we face some important questions. How will we identify the most relevant skill areas when machines do everything? And how can we overhaul our content and curriculum? And how can we redefine our teaching and training approaches? So our goal was to create a roadmap for educators who want to build a successful future workforce. Because without fundamentally recasting, rethinking of how we look at learning, how we think about learning and skill development, we're afraid many individuals, companies, and economies will be left behind. So what did we find, from our research? Artificial intelligence, just to set the context, artificial intelligence is the great story of our time. Decades in the making, finally AI is out of the laboratory and infusing itself into each and every aspect of our lives. Over the next few years, AI will be all around us. It'll help us educate our children, heal our sick, lower our energy bills, and uncover new worlds of our work and society. And that's where we found 80% of respondents, we spoke to, they agreed that AI will have a significant impact on work in the next 5 years. So you can very well imagine the pace of change that is coming along our way. But if you look at, we consume AI almost on a daily basis and we don't even realize it. So we use it, when it comes to in the form of GPS. It has become our daily helpers to make our day slightly more convenient and maybe a little more enjoyable. When you talk to Alexa, when you talk to Siri, the AI platform is in action in the background. Your news feed that comes through Facebook, and if you have GPS to get across town, searching for music on iTunes. So these are all wonderful artificial intelligence platforms in action. We consume AI on a daily basis and we don't even realize it. But now, the commercial aspect of AI is becoming very, very interesting. For instance, six of the top eight hedge funds in the US, they earned around $8 billion purely based on AI algorithms. So the machine has already won the game of stock picking. What else? So the average radiologist, this is also very interesting. The average radiologist reads 20,000 films a year. The accuracy rate is around 82%. But now the AI software interprets results of X-rays 30 times faster and with 99% accuracy. So the point here is that the new machine has already surpassed human capability in many ways, and it is just the starting. But the age of AI is also generating mixed emotions. On one hand, you have a sense of excitement. There is tremendous pressure on business leaders to grow revenue, to reduce cost, and there is no way they can ignore the enormous benefits of AI and automation. So they will go after these technologies. But on the other hand, AI means layoffs, job losses. So here's the quiz. Our first question for the poll. What percentage of jobs do you think will be taken over by bots in the future? So there are going to be some options. As you can see the option in the poll section. So these are the options you can select. And in a moment, we will show you the result and also our findings based on our estimates, what we really found when we were doing our research. So let's take a moment. Let me give a couple of seconds for people to respond to this poll. Okay, so I think we have got responses, or almost all the responses. Now people are still participating. Let's wait for a few more seconds. Okay, so seems like it's going to be quite a scary world as we move forward. 35% of our attendees, right, who participated, they are saying it's going to be more than 33%. What percentage of jobs? More than 33%. And 35% are equal number of our attendees are saying 22% of jobs will be taken over by bots in the future. Okay, so in a moment we'll reveal the reality. But before that, if you look at you and the new machine, there are three scenarios to it: job automation, job enhancement, and new jobs creation. Right now, unfortunately, what is happening is, okay, Ash, can you confirm if you can see my screen? Yeah, hi, can you confirm if you can see my screen? Okay, good. So let's continue. So what I was saying is basically, 90% of today's conversation is happening in this bucket, job automation. That's why we keep seeing media headlines that, robots are coming and they're going to take our jobs, especially when you have renowned institutions like Oxford claiming that 47% of jobs will disappear over the next 20, 25 years. So this is scary. All this making us rethink the fundamentals of our institutions and the very nature of work itself. But we are very optimistic about the future. And the reason is we believe 90% of tomorrow's activity is going to be in these two buckets: job enhancement and new jobs creation. The point is, we tend to confuse between a job and a task. So every job contains number of tasks. And now with AI and automation, some or many of these tasks are going to get automated. And that's going to happen for good. Because now we, as humans, can be very much focused on what really matters to us, what really matters to businesses. For example, if you're a lawyer, that's your job. So what do you do as a lawyer? You perform number of tasks. But now with automation, as many of these tasks are going to get automated, you can be very much focused on what really matters to judges and juries, what really matters to customers. So that's where we believe the future of jobs is going to be in these two buckets. And these are estimates, that we made. Only 12% of jobs are at the risk of taken over by bots. Only 12%. Compared to what we are seeing in the market today, and compared to even our attendees, what you all felt, only 12%. But still, we are talking about millions of jobs globally. But the point is, 75% of existing jobs are going to get enhanced with new machine, which means that your job remains, but the job description, the performance metrics are going to get altered with new tools and with new capabilities. And then 13% of net new jobs will also be created in the future that no one usually talks about. Jobs that don't exist today, but these are the jobs that will become cornerstone of the future of work. So in the future, the bottom line is, in the future, work will change, but won't go away. Many types of jobs will disappear, and many workers will struggle to adjust to the disappearance of the work they understand today. And they find it hard to thrive with work they don't understand. And why 75% of jobs are going to get enhanced? And there's a very simple logic behind it, what we call the art of the job and the science of the job. Humans are good at the art of the job, which means the visual cues, the emotion, the empathy, judgment, what's the right thing to do based on the context of the situation. And machines are good at the science of the job. Data analysis, number crunching. You can't beat a computer when it comes to number crunching. And based on all statistical evidence, what's the most appropriate action for us to take? So whether you are an educator, you are a policeman, you are a nurse, you are a politician, each and every job is going to get enhanced with new tools and capabilities. And that is what going to provide, the fundamental of future of work and ultimately jobs. This is one very good example of how AI is enhancing jobs. This is from Singapore airport only, their new terminal that they opened. So not every employee will need to create an AI powered robot. You don't need to become an AI expert or a robotic expert, but all of us will need to get familiarized with basic technical constructions and how to best interact with these robot creations at this Singapore Changi Airport Terminal 4. So what has happened here is the implementation of automated machines didn't result in jobs disappearing. So deployed as Changi experience agents, now humans, we have very powerful customer service officers who are serving passengers with high quality face-to-face interactions and allowing airlines to better optimize their resources through human machine collaboration. So that's how AI is actually enhancing people to focus more on what really matters to travelers, what really matters to airline businesses, right, and what really matters to airport authorities. So this is a wonderful example of how AI is enhancing jobs. Then what about new jobs? So we showed that 13% of net new jobs will also be created. But the point is, no one talks about these jobs. So in November 2017, it's sometime back, we had published our 21 Jobs of the Future report, a guide to getting and staying employed in the next 10 years. So in that report, we proposed 21 new jobs that would emerge from a world of AI, automation, algorithms, bots, and big data. So the jobs ranged from the low tech and semi obvious, like a walker talker, to the very high tech and hard to fathom, a genetic diversity officer. So these are the jobs that don't exist today. But these are the jobs that will become very, very important in the future. So the jobs we described emerged from studying and analyzing economic, political, demographic, cultural, business, and technology trends, and then drawing implications, from them. So our 21 jobs of the future are positioned over a 10-year timeline and according to their tech centricity, as you can see. So each is presented in the form of a job description, just like any other JD that you see today, it's on similar lines, but from future perspective. And they're not science fiction. These are the jobs that HR departments will have to fill before very long. Some are highly technical, while others won't require much tech knowledge at all. So again, this report is available in the public domain. In case you want to have a look at it, you can simply type 21 jobs of the future cognizant, and it'll take you to this, report. So these are some of the jobs that we had predicted in 2017. What we really found that some of these jobs have already become a reality in organizations. For instance, financial wellness coach, that we described, how the financial wellness coach is going to leverage the power of AI and serve, human customers. And this is what we really found happening at MetLife's. So this is the MetLife Plan Smart Financial Wellness. This is the new program that they created. And when we look through the press release of the company, so what they describe this person as someone who's going to be hybrid, a digital slash human financial wellness service that supports users as they manage the twists and turn of their financial life journeys. So the language is, not exactly the same what we described in our job description, but the point is it's very much similar, what we were talking about in terms of financial wellness coach. And then our man-machine teaming manager, if the future of work is going to be hybrid, we need someone who can manage humans as well as machines. And that's where the teaming manager is going to be important. And we saw this role emerging at Cobalt Robotics as robot manager. And then our memory curator and augmented reality journey builder jobs, have been brought to life at Facebook, which is leveraging, posted photos to create fully immersive experiences that recreates times that have gone by. So some of these jobs have already become a reality in organization. So following the success of our earlier report, we decided to produce a second version, proposing 21 more jobs in time will come to replace work that is being automated away. So once again, everything remains the same in terms of the tech centricity, in terms of the time horizon, and and again, some of the jobs are highly technical, some of the jobs are not technical, at all. But these are very, very interesting, jobs to look at. So in total, now we have got 42 jobs that we believe are going to be important, throughout the period of 2028 to 2029. So these are the 42 jobs. In case you are looking for some food for thought, how these jobs will potentially emerge and what it means from higher education perspective, you can have a detailed look at these two reports. But at the same time, preparing for the future of work is going to be everyone's job. It's not going to be only higher education institutions or businesses. And as you can see, the majority of businesses, 80% of them and 72% of higher education institutions, they agreed that it is extremely important for them to prepare workers and students to work alongside emerging digital technologies. Not only do companies and higher education institutions need to train people for jobs that currently exist, they also need to prepare them for jobs that don't exist yet, like 21 and 21 more jobs that we talked about. And there is this interesting report from World Economic Forum that says more than 35% of today's important job skills will have changed by 2020, not too far, next year only. So the good thing is that many companies believe in reskilling workers whose roles have been automated. This is one good example, from Aviva, the insurer. So what they're doing is recently they asked their workers whether their jobs could be better done by a robot or not, especially if you look at staff who work in call centers, who assess customers credit ratings and calculate the price of insurance policies. So these jobs are better taken care by robots because these are the repetitive tasks, and machines are good at doing the repetitive tasks. So this is a great move by the company, as it will not only help elevate employees trust but also build the talent pipeline for future jobs by being very transparent to employees, asking them if you think that your job will be automated in the future or not. So that way they can provide a more robust training programs for their employees, and also, to create new jobs that are going to be important for the insurance, industry. So the message received is loud and, clear. Business leaders and educators, they have a huge task ahead. Today, businesses, they estimate that only about 1/4 of their total staff have the skill base to work and interact with emerging digital technologies. And this figure is expected to more than double to 62%. And for higher education institutions, only 20% of higher education institutions believe that students have the required, knowledge and the skill base to work and interact with emerging digital technologies. And again, there is going to be a significant jump from 20% to 57%, in 5 years. So it's a huge task and will require time, practice, effort, and loads of resources, both from businesses as well as from higher education institutions. But getting there won't be easy. It can be an overwhelming task, for many leaders, for many educators. And people, educators, leaders can easily lose through the woods if they do not have clarity on what needs to be done. Because there are some critical challenges both organizations as well as, higher education institutions face. Breaking down the status quo especially is a tall order for higher education institutions. There are numerous challenges that both these entities face. Businesses, on one hand, businesses, they cited lack of clarity about which skills to prioritize as a top challenge that could impact their, plan to reskill workforce, followed by lack of skilled talent in learning and development department, and also poor technology integration of new solutions with existing systems, and the misalignment of workforce strategy with business goals. They're not very sure how to align this human plus machine workforce in their, workforce strategy, and then inability to deliver learning with greater speed, agility, and, flexibility. And when we compare these challenges, with higher education institutions, they are completely, different, right? Because higher education institution challenges are deeply rooted into the fundamental, issues that, they face. Because higher education institutions seem to be responding more slowly to the rapid technological and social changes. For instance, their inability to deliver learning with greater speed, and then the slow pace of curriculum, lack of clarity about which skills to prioritize, resistance from, faculties. So many of our higher education, institutions, respondents, they expressed concern about being able to live up to the challenge. Because if you look at, the truth is that our education system is slow to change and is focused on standardization and stability instead of innovation, responsiveness, and agility. The earlier linear model of education and then employment and then career, so that model is slowly, going away. That's no longer sufficient. So making future jobs preparation and education priority will require transformations that are every bit as dramatic as those that came about in the early part of the 20th, century. So what to do about it? That's where we need to break down old rules of learning, because the signs are clear that the change is upon us. That's why we need new approach towards learning, especially when 64% of, respondents are saying that work will be intertwined with learning. Learning while working and working while learning is going to become the new norm. So in order to meet the demands of the digital economy, we need to change the way we prepare current and future workforces, and ultimately how we learn. So how can we go about this new approach towards learning? So there isn't one approach when it comes to the future of work and ultimately learning. There are going to be five, and we have to be very, very clear which of these five approaches, educators and companies will be pursuing. They are: how to identify the right skills that are going to be important in the future, and then skill-based curriculum, right? That is going to be no longer an option or a choice, but it's going to be important. It's going to be mandatory. So how to go for it? And what are the new teaching methods and tools that we can adopt? And the fourth is how to accelerate the speed of learning in terms of skill identification, content creation or content curation, as well as teaching how to accelerate these three methods to match the speed of change that is happening around us, and how to empower students to take control of their learning, the lifelong learning, the self-learning, concept. So let's look at each of these, pieces very, very quickly. Starting with identify skills, and that's where we have our second poll question. So, which skill do you think from the list here, which skill will be most important in the future? Skill that is going to help students get a good handle of future jobs and ultimately the future of work. So, can you display the options, please? Okay, let's give a few seconds for respondents to, for our attendees, sorry, to respond. Okay, can you close the poll, please? Okay, good. So I could see, 71% of our attendees, you all believe that soft skills are going to be important, whereas 14% are saying technical skills and 14% saying robotics and AI skills. So let's look at what we really found. Okay, so definitely yes, right? There is no doubt that machines will pick up a greater number of discrete tasks as time goes on, but humans will still need to apply. All of us will need to enhance our current skill set in ways that many never imagined. So here's the result. I'm glad to see that most of you are in sync with the reality, what's happening in the market today. Soft skills, right, that are going to be important in the future. So while we notice businesses and higher education institutions, they seem to be on the same page. When it comes to the importance of AI and robotics and technical skills, 82% of businesses, 81% of higher education institutions that, robotic AI skills are going to be important, in the future. There's no doubt about it. But where we really found a disconnect is on the soft skills side. 80% of businesses saying that soft skills are going to be important in the future, whereas only 46% of educators, they agreed as part of our survey. So we were wondering what could be the possible reason for this disconnect. This could be maybe higher education institutions, they primarily view their role as a knowledge provider and believe human skills and soft skills should be enhanced on the job. But in reality, future jobs will require a combination of human and technological capabilities, as well as that's where educational systems, they really need to prepare the future workforce for these roles. For instance, to give you an example, even big data and data science jobs are more likely to demand creativity, teamwork, research, and writing skills than other jobs. So higher education institutions, really need to start, considering these real world contexts and try to help students develop the competencies and dispositions they need to be successful in the future. Also, one interesting trend, we notice, if you can see on the chart, both businesses and higher education institutions believe ethics as a skill is going to be important. 38% of businesses, 35% of higher education institutions, and there's a reason for that because machines being built today are unlike any built before, and nobody knows the possible unknown consequences that could result from intelligent machine failures or mishaps. So that's why there will be a need for highly skilled professionals to ensure the integrity, the security, the objectivity, and proper use of intelligent machines in the future. Higher education institutions, respondents, right, they are saying that, okay, they were prioritizing the introduction of new topics such as ethics and trust associated with intelligent machines. So that's one very interesting area, to explore from education standpoint. And in fact, this highlights a very great opportunity for both businesses and higher education institutions to train engineers, designers, developers, and innovators to not only define specific tasks for intelligent machines, but also determine what to do when they are not executed as expected. And another interesting, trend what we observed, educators strongly believe that STEM courses, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, these courses will continue to provide a solid foundation to students, for future jobs. There is no doubt about it. However, higher education institutions need to supplement their STEM streams, with design thinking, with creativity, and social science, skills. There is one very interesting study from Google, so when Google analyzed its hiring, people that they fire, and also the promotion data, when they looked at all the data, they really found that among the 8 most important traits of the company's top employees, STEM expertise was not the only thing. The 7 top characteristics of successful Google employee were all human centric: being a good coach, communicating and listening well, having empathy, and being a good critical thinker, among others. So definitely the importance of soft skills, is going to only increase in the future. Because the simple math is, at the end, whether it is a B2B or a B2C job, the work ahead won't be much about beating the bots, as it will be about being a better human in the digital economy. Because no matter how technological our age becomes, ultimately we as humans still want the human touch. We want technology to help us as a tool, but we don't want technology for technology's sake. And that's what the jobs of the future will reflect: the very basic fact that technology has improved things for humans and not robbed us what we really value most: our humanity. And that's the premise of our 21 jobs and 21 more jobs, that we did in the recent past. So moving to the next, next category, that is the skill-based curriculum, right? Let's look at the curriculum, issue, which I believe is quite ingrained into the education system, and which is not very easy to, change as well. So higher education institution, will be unable to foster required new skills without a major curriculum and content overhaul, as well as a new approach to delivery, that is on demand and continuous in nature. So one of our most prominent research findings from this study is that businesses seem much more prepared than higher education institutions to provide the required dynamic, content and learning strategies. While 43% of businesses currently update their learning content on an annual or biannual basis, 71% of higher education respondents, only update their curriculum every 2 to 6 years. Fast forward 2023, 75% of businesses plan to update their learning content every 1 to 5 months, or even on a continuous basis. While only 30% of higher education institutions, they plan to overhaul their content or their curriculum on an annual basis. So one of the biggest challenges, for higher education institutions today is developing curriculum that is fit for both current and future jobs. 67% of higher education institutions, they strongly felt the need to overhaul their curriculum to align with actual workplace needs. And 73% believed the use of predictive, analytics to forecast workforce needs and maybe create relevant programs, that would be a good strategy to align curriculum with workforce, as well as the workplace, needs. And many universities today, they are using analytics tools to identify emerging and growing job market needs and high growth, degree areas. With real-time data, universities can create new and revised programs, for instance, in data science. So this analysis, can help universities develop curriculum by detailing skills required within each sector. And another way, higher education institutions can address the curriculum issue is by complementing traditional degrees with badges and certifications, from employers. 72% of higher education institutions, they believe that badges and certifications are going to be very, very important in the future, and maybe in some cases will outweigh degrees. One good example of certification is, a career in cybersecurity, which is very much based on series of certifications that define an individual's career path and future job prospects. So the same approach can be applied even to soft skills if you look at it. What else? Also, the next, the textbooks, right? Textbooks will go Netflix style. So students today learn differently from how their parents did. So in a digital only world, they will expect content that responds to them, that is very personalized. And that's what some of the companies like Pearson Education, an educational publishing company, they allow students to pay for a semester long subscription to its software that can be consumed on any device. So the company is now bringing AI to textbooks by providing supplemented readings, extra quizzes, and even a virtual tutor to students struggling with certain concepts. So AI-driven hyperpersonalization can help determine shortcomings and steer students to content that can quickly provide remedial help and mastery over time. So definitely yes, right? The curriculum overhaul is the need of the hour, and but I understand, it's easier said than done, looking at the strong foundation of our institutions, right? And things are not going to move very very fast. Things take their own time, so it's not going to be an easy task, but the more time we take to do that, greater the probability that we'll be left behind. So let's move to the next piece, right, which is on adopt new teaching tools and techniques, right? What are the new teaching techniques and approaches that are going to be important in the future? So as you can see on your screen, these are the training approaches we asked to both businesses and higher education institutions. Instructor-led face-to-face training, on-the-job e-learning, video learning, mobile learning. While instructor-led face-to-face training, definitely there's going to be a significant reduction for businesses, at least over the next 5 years. But we are not expecting, the same for higher education institutions. So instructor-led face-to-face training still is going to be very much, important in the higher education sector. But some other pieces, if you look at it, webinars, mobile learning, AI-driven training, blended learning, e-learning, all these approaches are going to play a very important role for the higher education sector as we continue to blend the human tutoring with some of the approaches, with some of the tools and technologies that are available today. Among all these approaches, right, we believe two: AI and AR VR, augmented reality, virtual reality. So these technologies will play a huge role for the success of higher education in the future, because the future of learning will not be only about content but also how it is delivered. So tomorrow's learning experience will be more active, interactive, and frictionless, and take place in an environment that blurs the boundaries between the traditional classroom and the world outside of it. And then AR VR, there is a strong need to expose students to a wide range of realistic experiences to make them adaptive to various situations at work. So by applying AR VR to education, anything is possible. Just imagine a room full of history students exploring the wreck of the Titanic, or a group of medical students opening a heart to improve their comprehension, a class of astronomical students, landing on the moon as astronauts. So sky's the limit. And that's where we found there is a strong interest from both businesses as well as from higher education institutions in leveraging these technologies from teaching standpoint, as there will be 200 more than 200% increase in the adoption of these technologies over the next 5 years. One very good example I would like to bring here, the Jill Watson example. At Georgia Tech University, an AI teaching assistant, Jill Watson. So this assistant helps Professor Ashok Goyal run his class in a more effective manner. So Jill's primary job is to provide answers to thousands of questions undergraduates post online, freeing up the professor's time. So students couldn't tell that they were chatting with a bot or they were chatting with a human. So Jill delivers better information, often better expressed and faster than human tutors. So AI assistants can also help teachers provide real-time feedback on students' performance, strengths, and weaknesses so that teachers can determine the exact skill gaps and learning that needs to be done for each student and provide supplemental guidance accordingly. So we believe it doesn't mean that AI is going to replace teachers. We don't think so. Rather, it will guide them to become better educators. So that's the future of educators from AI standpoint, if you look at. What about the speed piece, right? Why the speed element is so important? Why we really need to identify skills quickly? Look at the content or the curriculum, issue, right, as fast as possible, and how to overhaul the teaching approaches. So for all the three elements, the speed is going to be critical. Why? Because at the end of the day, right, we have to match the speed of change, the technological and the market changes that are happening around us. This means that businesses and higher education institutions need to speed up the pace of skill identification, the curriculum creation or the curriculum overhaul, and training delivery to match the pace of technological and market changes happening around us. So in fact, 80% of respondents believe that employable skills will evolve much more rapidly in the future than they do now, creating a sense of urgency to learn faster or be left behind. So the speed at which the three elements of learning are going to be executed, whether it's skill or the content or the teaching. So the speed element will determine how effectively we are preparing the future workforce for jobs that don't even exist today. And then the self-learning piece, that is equally very, very important. No matter how great our learning systems are, but if students are not motivated enough to learn new skills faster, the future of work won't happen. So, with the need for skill development more urgent than ever, businesses and higher education institutions are beginning to realize the importance of holding individuals responsible for staying relevant with changing, skill demands. On average, 61% of all respondents said they plan to prioritize self-learning as a key training or teaching approach in the next 5 years. So that's very significant if you look at, how to create and promote the culture of self-learning, the lifelong learning. That is going to become the new norm as we move forward. So what could possibly go wrong? When we are approaching these five approaches, when we are approaching these five elements, right, whether it's going to be the content or the skill or the training and the speed or the self-learning, what could possibly go wrong as we move forward? That's where we believe the tug of war that is playing out between the two entities. This is quite surprising. So who's responsible for preparing the current and future workforce? While it seems obvious that both the entities are responsible, but our respondents, they were disagreed. They were not on the same page. So we found each seems to feel it is the other's responsibility to prepare graduates with a diverse range of human skills. Like 67% of companies, they are concerned about educational institutions' effectiveness in preparing the workforce for future jobs. And 77% of higher education institutions are concerned about organizations' ability to train graduates, properly with the kind of skills, that they will need in the future. So rather than, working together for preparing individuals for the future of work, businesses and higher education institutions, they appear to be, pointing their fingers at each other, obviously, which is not going to, help any of the entities and rather create more, confusion in the market. So what could be the possible way out? The good thing is that we found 76% of leaders and educators, they view collaboration as critical to effectively prepare the workforce for the future, jobs, because the current and future workforce preparation cannot take place in isolation. And that's where they have to, collaborate. Higher education institutions are extremely well positioned, if you look at, to help businesses, you know, access and develop new talent, new ways of working, and research and product development. Some higher education institutions, like the University of Southern Denmark, they are offering consulting services to businesses on hiring and retaining satisfied new employees. So higher education institutions, must also explore innovative ways to partner with various stakeholders, not only companies but also governments, tech companies, training providers, consultants, or maybe co-working companies and startups to build new learning approaches. So collaboration is going to be the need of the hour, and collaboration is the only way we can help prepare our current and future workforces. And this is one very interesting example, just to give you an idea, sort of collaboration that is happening in the industry as well between WeWork, the co-working space provider, and the 2U. higher education digital platform provider. So what they're doing is they will expand access to learning opportunities for WeWork's 175,000, close to 200,000 members and 4,000 employees worldwide, and enhance the educational experience of more than 13,000 students in 2U powered graduate programs by creating additional opportunities to learn, connect, and collaborate in person. So this very interesting, partnership. If you look at a co-working space partnering with a digital platform, the education digital platform provider. So this is the sort of collaboration what we really need, and these are the sort of collaboration companies and higher education institutions can aim for. So just to summarize, the future of work is actually the mirror image of the future of learning. The future of work won't happen unless we address the learning issue, because the future is approaching more rapidly than before. So skilling and reskilling the workforce for jobs that are just emerging and don't even exist yet, definitely, is disrupting the entire education system, our business landscape, as well as our society. So now is the time for educators and business leaders to rethink their workforce learning models and their relationship with the future of work. And that's where they can look at the elements that we described as part of future of learning equation that is described more in detail in the report, identify skills, the flexible and adaptive learning content, and embrace new forms of teaching and training approaches. And everything is going to be multiplied with the speed factor, because we have to move fast to address the fundamental issues that exist in our system today. Uh, to summarize, the future of learning is nothing but a song of hope, because we need to make learning great again, and we can do it. We have done that in the past, but now with changing dynamics and the fast pace of technological change and the impact of AI and automation on jobs, we have to move really, really fast. So this is the asset, relearning how we learn, right? And also we have our portal, cognizant.com/future of learning. So you can go to this portal along with this report. There are other assets that you can find, the infographic, perspective, our articles, and let us know what you think. So that's my story. Let's see if there are any questions or thoughts.
Hi, thank you, Manish. So we've got a couple of questions that came in earlier.
Okay,
Probably I can read the question.
sure.
Okay, this is from Cynthia. So AI is a powerful tool that could be used for good or bad. What's your take on technologies being used for nefarious purposes that compromises education instead of helping, and how should institutions be convinced otherwise?
Right. Okay. So definitely, I believe, this is something which is going to be important. We are actually heading towards AI versus AI, kind of a world, machine versus machine, the good AI and the bad, AI. So obviously, with the advancement of technology, there are going to be, entities, there are going to be people who will take an undue advantage of, the AI technology. But at the same time, I believe, there is, but it doesn't mean that, the bad AI piece is going to stop the adoption of good AI. So rather, we are going to get more and more focused on the, good AI in the future, and that's where ethics, one of the prominent findings from our study is ethics emerging as an important skill. So it highlights a great opportunity for higher education institutions, to adopt or to create programs, to create, educational streams, or maybe blend, the existing streams with ethics as an important skill, because we need to train engineers, we need to train, designers who are actually working, who are behind creating these machines, and we need to ensure that they are following the right principles. They are not undermining, the human aspect when it comes to creating these, machines. So what to do when machines go wrong? This is something I believe higher education institutions have a huge role to play in addressing, this particular issue, how to address the unwanted consequences of machine failures. Okay, any other
Yeah,
question?
okay. Yes, there's another question. So, based on your understanding and findings, do you think schools in Asia are in the right path in preparing learners to succeed in an AI future? What are the intermediate actions that institutions and its stakeholders should take to prepare?
Yeah, so it's not the issue. That's a very good question. It's not the issue only with schools in Asia. I think it's happening everywhere, right? Uh, I personally, I don't think that our education system, be in Asia or in the US or in Europe, we are preparing kids for future of work. We are still preparing kids to work, not alongside machines, but to fight with machines. Because if you look at our current curriculum, our current teaching approaches, right, it's not going in sync with the kind of skills that we will need in the future. So the future of work is going to be hybrid, which means man plus machine. And what sort of skills that will be required to succeed in that hybrid world? What kind of knowledge, what kind of learning that is going to be important, in that hybrid world? So I think, our education system, schools or higher education institutions, they have a huge role to play, and we need to start immediately. Because if we don't do that, I think the learning aspect will quickly shift more towards businesses, because businesses, they have raised their concern, in a significant manner. As part of our study, what we really found, that they are not very confident, about the skills that higher education institutions are producing, and the skills what they really need. So there seems to be a clear disconnect between what businesses need and what businesses want, and what higher education institutions are producing. So we need to bridge that gap, and that's where collaboration is going to be much more important, especially from higher education standpoint. And that's where we can leverage organizations, not only to become the uh, not only to become to consume the talent that is being coming out from universities and colleges, but also to help education institutions co-create the talent what we really need in the future. But at this point of time, I am afraid, we are not yet there, and the time is running out, and we have to move very, very fast. Okay, any other
Okay,
question?
so yeah. Any other questions? You can type it into the questions box.
So there is a question from Paul. How safe is the technology to human health given the prolonged exposure to electromagnetic frequency? Paul, I think that's a fair question. But if you look at even in the past, when internet became public, right, then also there was so many apprehensions. There were so many, concerns that were raised, that what's going to happen to humans, and it's not a good thing. I think we are going through the same cycle, even with AI as well as with other technologies, right? So there are concerns, but at the same time, we have to look at how AIs can actually help us, you know, address some of the issues that we haven't been able to do so, in our society. For instance, one-on-one learning. Right now, still we are very much focused on one-to-many learning, one teacher available for 30, 40, 50 students, depending upon where you are, in the world. So definitely we can address that issue with the help of AI. We can make learning very, very personal, depending upon what a specific student needs. So if I look at the positive side of the technology advancement that is happening, I think we have so much to gain than to get worry about the downside of it, because the advancement won't stop, and it's better that we adapt to it rather than getting worried about what's going to happen on the downside part. Okay.